Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started now. My name is Linda Shai. I'm an assistant professor at Cornell University's Department of City and Regional Planning, and I have the honor of hosting today's event. On behalf of my colleagues at the City College of New York, Columbia University, Hunter College, NYU, Parsons New School, Pratt Institute, and Rutgers, I am delighted to welcome you to the virtual open house for all urban planning programs in the New York City metro region. This is the first time that all of us have come together in a joint open house, and I think I speak for my colleagues in saying we have really enjoyed getting to know one another and each other's programs. Today's efforts would not be possible without the support of many staff, faculty, and students in each of our programs. I want to thank especially Cheyenne Fucci, who has done so much to organize this event. If you're here at this open house, then you are very likely drawn by a love of our built environment, our natural environment, and our communities. You are concerned about the many challenges facing cities and regions, no matter how small or large, from transportation congestion to housing affordability, from climate change to food security, from justice and inclusion to fair and effective governance. Planning is a field that responds to all of these challenges. It is inherently spatial because it grapples with the places where people live and where policies and investments land on the ground. It is inherently interdisciplinary because planners help integrate and reconcile the many different, often conflicting perspectives and sectors that have to live and work together. It is a normative field because planners advocate not only for a general public, but specifically for those whose voices and needs have historically and continually been sacrificed or ignored. And it is a reflexive field, one that recognizes the problems that many plans, planning perspectives, and planning projects have caused and constantly asks, how can we do better? Today, we are very excited to introduce you to this field and to help you make the decision as to whether planning is the right field for you. Based on the registration forms we received, it's clear that people are coming in with three basic questions today. Why should I choose planning over other graduate fields of study like design or policy? What careers are available to me if I get a planning degree? And if I decide to pursue planning, which school is right for me? These are precisely the questions we hope to shed light on today through the three panels. The first features 4 alumni who will share their pathways and experiences. We'll then have a panel with 4 master's programs that teach about planning more comprehensively, followed by a panel with 4 master's programs that focus on specific aspects of planning. At the end of the session, we'll share a survey with you asking you to gauge your interest in planning and to indicate which programs you are interested in hearing more from after today. Those schools will then send you more information about their upcoming individual open houses so that you can learn more about their programs. You can find today's agenda on the event webpage, along with additional information about each of the schools. Our panelists will not be taking any questions from the audience, but we encourage you to ask questions in the chat. We have a number of faculty and staff present from each of the schools who will respond to your questions in the chat. So without further ado, let me welcome our first panel with our alumni speakers.
Hello, and welcome to this amazing event. And thank you so much particularly to you, Linda, for your incredible contribution to the event. So we're incredibly thankful to be able to present all of our institutions. And what I would like to do in my role as moderator,
Julio, I think
yeah.
You are one panel up ahead.
One panel up ahead, I'm sorry.
Not at all. It's totally fine. Let me just find Naaman here so that we can pin him and have him on the panel. Pin, here we go. I think we may not have Emily here. Is that correct? Emily is not able to join. So we have 3 fantastic alumni, which they may be happy to know because now they each have slightly more minutes to share their stories. So I will not introduce our speakers, but ask them instead to introduce themselves. And we're going to just dive right in to having them share why did you all go into planning school and what path has your career taken you since then? Let's start with George.
Great, thank you, Linda. So when I was in undergrad in my early career, I worked in politics and government in New Jersey, working on various political campaigns. I worked for a state assemblywoman. I worked for Governor Corzine for a while. And I wanted to move away from more the pure political and kind of get into the whole reason why I was doing political work, which was like some of the policies that I cared about. And so I was actually on the fence for quite a while if I was going to do just urban planning or public policy. And just, circumstances, I ended up doing a dual degree program at Blaustein. So I did the 3-year MCRP MPP program with a focus in community development. I really enjoyed my time at Blaustein. I learned a lot from the faculty there and the other students there. I started in 2010, and I think that year was a record for enrollment given the state of the economy shortly after the Great Recession. We had 110, I think, planning students. Since my time at Blaustein, I ended up working for what was at the time called the Brick City Development Corporation, which is the city of Newark's nonprofit economic development arm. Then it became the Newark Community Economic Development Corporation. Worked there for a time. I worked on the Amazon HQ2 proposal. I worked on our expansion of Riverfront Park, working with developers to try to bring additional development to the city. And then most recently in 2019, I transitioned to Chief of Staff at the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And I was there about 3 months before COVID hit. And then it was kind of all hands on deck, trying to keep small businesses afloat and keeping projects going. And then about a year ago, I moved into the role of Chief Real Estate Development Officer here at EDA. And it's a great opportunity. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of stress, but I kind of lead the authority's real estate efforts, both in our direct development efforts when we're building state office buildings. We're trying to build a maternal and infant health center in Trenton. We're working with University Hospital here in Newark on their redevelopment efforts, and our public-facing development programs also roll up to me. So I oversee Aspire, which is our largest real estate gap financing program. To date, we've approved over $500 million in tax credits for over 1,500 residential units and more than 500,000 square feet of commercial space. And various other programs, historic property reinvestment program, brownfields reinvestment program, a variety of things. And I think what I like most about my role now is working directly with developers, with local governments, and moving projects kind of forward, and then hopefully being able to look out my window here in downtown Newark and see a few buildings that we're involved with rise up out of the ground.
Thanks so much, George. I see that Emily Junker has now joined us. So that means, everyone, you are back down to very tight times. All right, Naaman, let's go to you next.
All right, thank you, Linda. And can you remind me the question one more time, if you don't mind?
The question is, why did you go to planning school, and what path has your career taken since then?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good one. So I went to planning school because I got my first degree in architecture, and I was working in the field and was not happy with how constrained my profession was due to regulation. And I also wanted to expand into working in international development. So I decided to go to Wagner, which I never regret at any moment. I wanted to supplement my design education with an understanding of urban planning and urban policy, and particularly development finance. And so I went and specialized in international development planning at the time. And since then, I've had the chance to work at UN Habitat Nairobi. I worked with Alex, who's also on this panel, at New York City Planning. And I've been an affordable housing policy consultant and kind of still am at Bloomberg Associates. So, yeah.
Super. You can go to grad school in New York City and then leave New York City to work elsewhere. Okay. Alex, go ahead. Alex, do you want to go next?
Sure. Sorry. Thank you. So, hi, everybody. My name is Alex Sommer. I am currently the director of the Brooklyn office at the New York City Department of City Planning. I joined the Department of City Planning here in 2011. So I've been here a few years now. Started as a planner, team leader, deputy director, and now the director. And so there was a clear pathway for me working through the agency. I didn't always intend to be kind of like a city government planner. I actually started off in the nonprofit world. working in sustainable ecotourism. I grew up in Florida originally, and near a port that had a lot of cruise liners, and saw the kind of the shape that tourism played in reshaping my community. There's, you know, the pros and cons associated with that, and I wanted to be involved in sustainable destination development. So I worked out of school and undergraduate school in Rhode Island to work in the nonprofit world around sustainable tourism. As part of that, I undertook a regional planning initiative with 3 municipalities and ended up working with a bunch of city planners. And I thought they were really cool. They were great. They were smart. They were curious. And they inspired me to go to graduate school to follow that career path. And I ended up going to Pratt in New York City, and ended up working in economic development world, Bed-Stuy Gateway Business Improvement District, which is housed in Bed-Stuy Restoration in Brooklyn. Worked for the borough president's office with economic development work there, and then ended up working here at city planning. And so it was a kind of indirect pathway to planning, but I'm super happy I'm here, and I love basically making New York City a better place to live and work, and that's my main goal. So that's how I got here.
Thanks, Alex. And last but not least, Emily.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Juncker, and I went to Columbia's urban planning program at GSAP. I graduated in 2020, and I'm currently working as a planner at BFJ Planning, which is a private planning consulting firm. Most of the work that I'm doing there is related to comprehensive planning. We also do some work with brownfield opportunity areas, downtown revitalization initiative, and other kind of state programs in New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. Before going to planning school, I kind of had a indirect career path. My undergraduate degree was in fine art photography. And after doing that, I kind of came across an interest that I had in architecture and thought I would, you know, pursue a master's in architecture. But before doing that, I wanted to get experience in that field. And I ended up working at an architecture and planning firm in the marketing department. And then I switched careers again, and I worked for a architectural photographer for several years. And then I decided that I wanted to do something completely different. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, which is kind of why I went to planning school, because there are so many options in different directions you can go with that degree. I actually did a dual degree with historic preservation. So I was really trying to just open all possible doors and figure out what I wanted to do in my career.
Super. So now that we kind of have a general sense of what each of you does and what your paths are, can you give us a more specific description of the kinds of day-to-day activities that you do in your current job and how that differentiates you coming from a planning background from those of your colleagues who may come from other disciplines? This time, why don't we start with Alex?
Sure. So, you know, my day-to-day, I'm a manager. I'm a hiring manager. I oversee a staff of over 20 folks, planners and urban designers. My day-to-day involves working closely with the administration and folks in City Hall, working with elected officials, community boards, community organizations, as well as managing the day-to-day of the office, any of the human capital issues that come up. And so, you know, my pathway through this was starting with the really hyper technical skills around using GIS to do data analysis and SPSS to do, you know, socioeconomic analysis, and combining it all in with Illustrator and the Adobe Creative Suite to create, you know, materials that could explain data. But then as you progress through that, you end up taking a step back in a larger view and actually having to implement policy, developing zoning regulations, opining and quite frankly, negotiating with the private sector and thinking through the best way to implement things that are developed at the neighborhood level, like the goals and the recommendations that residents and business owners want to see change at the policy level. How can we implement that as a city agency and working across multiple agencies? And so, you know, one example of that is the work that we did in Gowanus with an area-wide neighborhood plan there. And it's not just zoning, right? It was about leveraging our capital budget and undertaking resiliency initiatives, workforce programs, and of course, affordable housing and public open space along the waterfront. And that's across a bunch of different city agencies from Parks Department, DOT, and so on. And so it's really being able to leverage a bunch of different goals across multiple city agencies in a way that I think planning does best. It's not just doing like a traffic analysis at one intersection. That is one aspect of it. It's like kind of the macro view and trying to figure out how to implement policies that can positively impact generations to come.
Thank you. Emily?
Could you just repeat the question again? Sorry.
Sure. So can you describe your kind of day-to-day activities and how that differentiates you as a planner from those of your colleagues who come from different backgrounds?
Okay, thank you. So I guess working on a comprehensive plan, you kind of take out a lot of different, knowledge sets that you have. And in planning school, there's a lot of different classes you can take on all kinds of things. And I think that's really useful when it comes to comprehensive planning, because comprehensive planning is very much a generalist kind of practice where you have to understand a little bit about everything. So like Alex was saying, an engineer might be like hyper focused on like how the actual like water system works or something like that. The planner is kind of looking at a higher level and seeing all of the town's needs together and has to know a little bit about what is needed in each of these different areas. So whether it's infrastructure, historic preservation, housing, economic development, transportation, you kind of have to know all of those things and know how to talk to people in all of those different disciplines. I think that's one of the most important things. So whereas there are people who specifically work on those singular topics and get much more into the details and the dirt with that, the planner level for a comprehensive planner is really looking at those things from a higher level and kind of trying to help the town prioritize different needs.
Thank you. Naaman?
Sure. Let me take a step back because I don't think I got into too much detail about what I do on a day-to-day or what my actual role is at Bloomberg Associates. So Bloomberg Associates, we are a pro bono global consulting firm. We provide free technical expertise and advisory services to cities across the globe. So whereas Bloomberg Philanthropies gives away money and grants to cities, Mike Bloomberg pays my salary in order to provide advisory services to mayors and their staff across a number of different topics, right? And so I lead all of our work on housing affordability. And on a day-to-day, I do things from, help cities like Newark put together, comprehensive housing goals and kind of put together a system and to track against those goals and develop metrics and visualizations to do so. During the pandemic, I may be working with cities to set up emergency rental assistance programs and make sure that ARPA dollars get out. Also helping them to set up gap financing programs. And in other cities, as federal funds run out, helping them to find alternative revenue sources, right? So working with the state, with other philanthropic and private partners within those cities to, figure out, or to put together capital campaigns, right? And figure out where the money to address the affordable housing crisis is going to come from. And that happens not just here in the States, but across the pond, as I'm across the pond right now. I think that's what I do on a day-to-day. I guess how that would differ from my colleagues that are in design or in policy is instead of working at, the building scale or the site scale, I'm working at a citywide scale for the most part and working across a number of different parts of the administration, from the planning department to the housing department to the economic development department, and then also municipal finance, right? So sometimes you have to structure, bonds, and then also disbursement of property. So, yeah, I think that answers it.
All right, George, it's you next.
Great. So the Economic Development Authority is a cabinet level agency here in New Jersey. So my boss is Tim Sullivan. He's the CEO and he reports to the governor, Governor Murphy. In my role, I do a variety of things. You know, I'm a hiring manager. I got a bunch of folks underneath me, you know, working through those personnel issues. We are constantly standing up new programs. It's been an odd time in government the last few years where we all thought we were going to go broke when COVID started, and instead there's just been more resources than folks know what to do with. So, for example, today, I was working on something we're calling the Urban Investment Fund. It's a state gave us a pot of money, $50 million, that we need to deploy in order to try to bring folks back to downtowns that are suffering from reduced foot traffic due to like work from home or other pandemic issues. So trying to figure out how to make that work in the context of, you know, the EDA's, you know, existing rules and regulations and you know, enabling statute and all that. Also, you know, mocking up edits to legislation for a program that we hope will help to expand cultural and arts facilities in the state through a tax credit program. You know, we have Aspire, which is the general real estate gap financing program. This will just be focused on arts and culture. You check in with the governor's office quite often, and they have an office of economic growth and what they do. So, you know, we're not a regulatory agency, like, you know, like you'll see like a lot of municipal planners or folks in other parts of state government are writing rules and regulations for what folks do. We are like everything that we do is kind of optional for, you know, the clients or the applicants. If folks need small business assistance, if folks need real estate assistance, they're coming to us. We're not imposing regulations on them. So it's a little bit of a different relationship. Where like in effect we're kind of like a state bank in some regards, not entirely. So that's some of the day-to-day things that are, excuse me, I guess a little bit different from what a lot of other folks do with their planning degree. You know, we kind of try to look out into the private sector and think, where can we fill a gap? Where can we, you know, fix problems? What are the problems that need fixing? You know, when COVID started, our board, because, you know, technically we're an independent state agency, our board approved a $5 million small business grant program before Congress passed the CARES Act. And, you know, for what we thought was going to be, you know, a 4 to 6 week small little shutdown among a small segment of the economy instead of what it ended up being. Yeah, that's kind of what we do here.
Wonderful. So as folks can see, your planning path can lead you to really different careers. This is still only just a small segment. There's a lot more diversity actually among our graduates who end up doing all sorts of other things beyond what you're hearing as well. So I would like to ask everyone to share one thing that a degree in planning did for you, that catalyzed your career. What was your biggest takeaway in terms of an impact to your skills or to your networks or your expertise or your mindsets? What is the biggest impact that you think a planning degree had for you? And so this time, I guess I will pick on Naaman to kick us off.
Sure. I will say that planning had the biggest impact for me on, you know, municipal and financial and development finance. I think that was where I really was able to supplement skills and learn from really great professors at NYU, Natasha being one of them, Paul Smoke being another. I think those skills, and also the interpersonal and political skills that I have to use on a daily basis to, you know, collaborate and coordinate across a number of different jurisdictions and with private and public and nonprofit partners, I think is really the biggest takeaway. And then also just my network. So I know I'm supposed to pick one thing, but it's kind of hard to, so I apologize for that.
That's great. Thanks. Alex?
Yeah, I was trying to think of the three things: technical skills, you know, the curiosity that is necessary to unpack like how the world works around us, and the equity relationships and imbalances that are part of that. And then third is the kind of the network of other planners that you connect with. And I just want to focus on that one as an example, because that's I use that on a daily basis. And I think I'll focus on that one because that's allowed me to connect with planners and other city agencies to cut through red tape. And basically I can call somebody on the phone that I met in grad school, and then not just Pratt, but other grad schools here and part of my cohort. And we can get projects done. We can basically focus on something. We know we're coming from a kind of a connected place, speak the same language, and we get stuff done. And I think that's been really, really important to have that network built in. So 3 things, but I'll focus on that one.
Thanks. George?
Yeah, the network is, you know, super important. You know, you meet a lot of really good people, and then, you know, they're in different, you know, you progress throughout your career with them, and you maintain those contacts. And kind of like Alex said, right, you know, I had to call the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority about a program, and I knew someone there, so I just called him up directly, and he pointed me right in the right direction, and I got it done in like 5 minutes. So that's super important. Also, you know, one of the things that is really valuable in grad school is your ability to kind of try on different things, like through internships, through studios. You kind of get a little bit of that practice of like, what is it actually like to work in planning? You know, what are the different types of clients out there, the different types of projects, and you kind of get your pick. And, you know, you don't need to make the kind of commitment you would if you were looking for a full-time job that you had to do for forever. You kind of get to test some things out. And then just kind of being around folks from the different concentrations and the different areas of expertise. So, right, so I focused on community development, but, you know, I had a lot of folks that were concentrating on transportation at Blaustein. And you just kind of pick up a lot of that stuff. You start speaking that language, so that kind of when you're in those worlds, those circles, you know, you know what people are talking about, even though it wasn't your exact concentration.
Fantastic. And Emily?
Yeah, I think going to graduate school in urban planning was really life-changing in a lot of ways that I don't have enough time to explain them all right now. Echoing a lot of what others have said, I think going to graduate school, especially after having a few years of work experience, is really great to kind of come into this academic place where you can talk about issues that you really want to explore but haven't had the time to explore. You know, getting the liberty to do a thesis or a capstone project, a long-term like research project, where you can kind of lead and explore your interests. And as George said, studios where you get to explore different topics and different regions. I went on several international studios. I got to go to Hong Kong and to Sierra Leone with planning studios. And so those kind of experiences that you just can't get in any other like part of your life, I think, except for in grad school. And then the relationships that you build with the other students while you're working on those things together or traveling with them, and, you know, spending late nights trying to do your GIS homework in the computer lab and things like that. Those are really like long-term things that stay with you. So again, that network really comes through. I think also the network with my professors, Wei Ping Wu, who's on this call. I worked with her for a few years after graduating, and I'm so grateful for that experience, just knowing her and getting to stay involved with the program. And then also my current job, I found through a professor. And when I go to, you know, interviews with clients, or when I go on business meetings or to any kinds of like planning related things, I run into people that I knew from grad school, or somebody who knows somebody I knew in grad school, or, you know, you see the people again and again. And so those networks are really important for the long term.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask my last question. I'm going to ask each person to be very concise about it. If you could share one bit of advice with a prospective student who's trying to make a decision about whether or not to attend grad school and which grad school is right for them, what piece of advice would you give them? This time I'll start with you, Emily.
Okay, so in addition to you know, going to grad school at Columbia, I also worked for the program for a couple of years. So I definitely have a bias towards Columbia's urban planning program. And I think if you're interested in going to Columbia's urban planning program, I think Columbia is really great for its urban analytics concentrations. And those of you who are interested in international planning, I think those are two of the biggest strengths. Also, I mean, all of the schools here, you're in New York City, so you get exposure to New York, and you get to do projects in New York City, and you get that kind of experience. I think Columbia also gives a really great academic experience. So if you're a person who's interested in theory and really understanding the background of how things work, I think Columbia is a great place for that. You know, grad school is not just a time to go and learn the tools that you need to do a job. It's a time to like explore all of these concepts and to be around other people who have, you know, shared interests.
Thanks so much. I'm going to ask the remaining speakers to not just sell your school, but also to share a general piece of advice for people who are considering which school to apply for. Naima, why don't we go to you? Oh, you're muted.
Oh man, I was hoping to be able to sell Wagner, but I think my advice would be exposing yourself to as many opportunities as possible, right? That are adjacent to where you think you want to be in 10 years. Like don't, silo yourself and put yourself on a trajectory where you think you know exactly where you want to be, because you oftentimes don't end up exactly where you want to be, and that's just fine. And oftentimes you could, but you don't take a linear pathway there, right? So I'd say that would be it. Be open to and embrace discomfort, and embrace experiences that may be unrelated or may seem unrelated to your ultimate goal.
Absolutely. George?
Yeah. I would say make sure you visit the campus and talk to current students and professors, and they're going to have open houses. Go to the open house. Not to talk up last name, but just as an example, right? I was a Rutgers undergrad, and Rutgers is a massive institution, and when I was an undergrad, you can feel like a little bit of a number sometimes, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go back to Rutgers for grad school, so I was looking at other programs, and I went to the Blaustein Open House, and it feels like a really small campus because it's its own building, it's in the downtown, it's not on the main campus, you're not surrounded with all the undergrads, no offense to any undergrads on this call, but I wouldn't have known that if I didn't actually attend the open house and talk to folks. I would have had that kind of predisposition that, like, why would I want to go back to Rutgers if I already did that? Shouldn't I get a different experience? So highly encourage whatever schools you're looking at, both in the field, the subfield that you're interested in, but also to go to the open house, talk to students. You're going to spend 2 years of your life with the institution, get to know the institution and the people.
Thank you. Alex?
Yeah, graduate school is tough. It's really hard. And I think you're there to really shape your professional skill set, your network, and things like that. So I would say for people that are questioning or looking into potentially going to graduate school, be serious about it. I think it's there to shape your future career or your future research. And I think something that is really important to take out of it is it's a time to build your portfolio. And so develop your skill sets as you go through your classes, as you go through your studio work or your different projects, and build out the kind of skill sets that you want to take in through your career, build out a formal portfolio, and really sharpen up all the different aspects. Like Naima was saying, try out everything. Work if you can during grad school, do as many internships as you can. And I think that will be the most successful thing that you can do through your grad program.
Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences and inspiring a new generation of planners. I really appreciate your being on this call today. We're starting to get a few questions in the Q&A, and I invite our panelists to, now that you're going to stop talking, to go and review the questions there and offer some comments. Those of you who have additional questions, please continue to put them into the chat so that we can answer more of them. Without further ado, let me thank our panelists. We're going to say goodbye to you and welcome our new set of panelists moderated by Professor Julio Salcedo.
So this time I'm ready to moderate. I think my role here is very limited, and I already thank all the participants and Linda for the amazing work of putting this thing together. I'm just going to mostly keep time. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. And after a short presentation of about 3.5 minutes, I'm going to ask just a couple questions just to tease out more things about their programs and why they may be very interesting for you. So without further ado, we are going to start with Nicholas.
Can you hear me? Yes. So good evening, and thank to everyone, including Linda, for organizing this fantastic event. My name is Nicholas Bloom. I'm the program director of the Master's in Urban Planning program at Hunter College. I'm also a professor. So I'd like to start out by talking about our program a little bit. We were established in 1965 by Paul Davidoff, who popularized the notion of advocacy planning that emphasizes planning in the service of communities. And we have maintained that tradition. We are a PAB accredited program, famous for producing socially committed and technically competent planners. We are on the Upper East Side. You can see us down here, location with a subway stop in the building, which makes it a great example of transit-oriented design. Your degree can be completed in the evenings. In fact, all of our master's program courses are in the evening. Plus, we have robust summer sessions. We're a mix of part-time and full-time students, not quite yet, a mix of part and full-time students, diverse in terms of age, race, class, and experience. Next slide, please. We orient ourselves around small classes, discussion-oriented. We want you to get to know your peers and faculty. Students are active socially, help each other find jobs and succeed. We have a large full-time faculty for a small program, and we teach. We have a high teaching load. Our areas of faculty expertise include GIS, resilience, housing, transportation, and physical planning. We have excellent professional adjuncts as well, many working in regional agencies. In fact, Alex Summer is one of those who teaches frequently for us studio classes. And all of our faculty have solid connections to major employers, including city planning, housing, consultancy, and nonprofits. Next slide. All of our students complete a 6-credit studio work with an actual client on projects with potential real-world impact. The research contributes to planning that builds more equitable communities and urban quality more generally. There's small studio sections, 10 to 12 students, field trips, meetings with clients and stakeholders, and they produce a major final report. And there's Alex right there. Next slide, please. Students take core courses that build knowledge and planning as a field, and also they develop skills in managing land, GIS, site planning, environmental compliance, and graphic communication. Students get to choose specializations from a robust list of elective courses to help them take them in the direction that they want to go. And you can see our primary set here. Tuition is very affordable. This is deeply subsidized by New York State, with in-state students paying $11,000 for full-time study for a year. That is not a typo. It's $11,000 for a year of full-time study. And then, as was highlighted in the interviews, the alumni network is robust and helps our grads learn about jobs and make connections to get hired. With a strong alumni network in the tri-state area, and there are some other grads further afield. You can find out more details on our website, www.hunterurban.org. I got 3 minutes, 15 seconds. Leo, how'd I do?
Very well done. Thank you. Yes. Our next panelist, please.
Hello, my name is Sophie Field. I'm a professor and chair of Cornell's Department of City and Regional Planning. Our mission is to study, to teach, and practice planning, really embracing its diversity and its integration, to think about it and engage with it as an applied and change-oriented mix. And really, we have a collective utopian goal that we do this to help students and ourselves shape a more just, efficient, sustainable, caring, and even though this is utopian, beautiful world, so essential in this global moment. So where do we do this? We work on 3 campuses. We are in Ithaca in upstate New York. We are part of the College of Architecture, Planning, and Art. And through our college, we have programs with semesters in New York City and also in Rome in Italy. You can go to the next slide, please. We have fantastic faculty, 20 are permanent, up to 10 or more visit per year. We are all leading researchers who work on urban questions around the world, and we bring this expertise and passion to our teaching and advising. As a student at Cornell, you would be part of a large, diverse, and dynamic cohort with colleagues from around the world. A really attractive element in our degree is its flexibility. So half your credits are required, but you have lots of choices within our classes, within the department to satisfy those requirements. half can be taken anywhere on campus. And I think that's really something that's a great opportunity at Cornell. As a leading global research university, we are a place where you can study and embrace a wide and important and exciting topic as the deep approach to planning. We are fully PAB accredited. If I can have the next slide. We really want to give you a quick feel into these creative and urgent questions that inspire our practice and our research. That's what shapes our teaching. And our labs, which are part of a new center at Cornell, the Muijo Center for Cities, are really a great way to do that. So our labs are places where faculty work comes together. They are focused, for instance, in our department on climate change and adaptation, sustainable transportation, waste circularity, water and sanitation, and its access and affordability, local government and questions of zoning to address inequality, and historic preservation. What's really core to our department is this critical approach to researching, where we're thinking of the challenges of cities, but also finding pragmatic approaches to working with communities. And that's what lies at the heart of our teaching. So it's a great mix of methods, quantitative, qualitative, urban data analytics, mapping, archiving, and workshops which allow us to work with communities locally in Ithaca, in small upstate New York City communities that big city planners might fly over, to really think about urbanization in these contexts, in these low resource places. But by virtue of being a faculty that's very diverse from around the world, we also include projects in Chicago, Cleveland, Buffalo, Jackson, Mississippi, and globally in Shanghai and Cape Town, to name a few. And really key for our ethos is working with communities. We're thinking of that work as communities are a source of knowledge and wisdom, and they really pluralize and diversify how we think about planning. That's the ethos at the heart of our project. We're really student-centered. We have 6 energetic and mobilized student organizations. For me as chair, they're really crucial. They help us govern the department and they shape our social life in the department. If we can go to my last slide. Really, we have graduates working around the world and in the US in a range of sectors. And we really hope that this gives you a feel for the mix of research and practice, the global and local questions that shape and inspire our degree. And we look forward to chatting either offline later or in the questions now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next panelist, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mishi. I am the director of the Master of City and Regional Planning program at the Bloustein School at Rutgers University. For those of you who may not be familiar with us, we are located in central New Jersey. New York City and Philadelphia are just about a 1-hour train north and south from us. Next slide, please. So the MCRP program is unique in a couple of ways. First, it is a STEM designated program. So this is really advantageous, especially for international students, because it gives you 2 more years to establish yourself in the field in the US. Second, by choosing the MCRP program, you really do get the best of both worlds. You get to take advantage of the vast network of resources and opportunities that come with being part of a top research-run university like Rutgers. But at the same time, you really enjoy the small school feel and support of a robust academic program. One of the best resources we have is our on-site Student Career Services Office at Bloustein School. They provide the suite of support from resume reviews, mock interviews, to internship and job searches. Next slide, please. So we have 6 concentrations that you can choose from. We also really encourage interdisciplinary thinking and works. So if you find your interests fall at the intersection of these areas, we will help you to create a customized concentration. We also offer several dual degree options with the MBA and JD programs at Rutgers. as well as with our own public policy and informatics programs at Bloustein. We have graduate certificates in transportation studies, GIS, climate change, and real estate development, just to name a few. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you can see that our strategic location really allows us to offer studio courses working with communities and agencies in New York, in New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. We really endeavor to match studios with our students' concentration areas and planning interests. Next, please. So here is the list of application items. We do offer merit-based funding awards for those seeking full admission, and the deadline is January 15th. So please reach out to us, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Our next panelist, waving, please.
Thank you. Delighted to see all of you, and thanks for this wonderful opportunity. So my presentation is by no means comprehensive, so I thought I would focus a little bit more on the curriculum. We are very expensive, unfortunately, and so what we try to do is to provide really rich array of opportunities for students, both to explore intellectually, professionally, and life-wise. So you can see this is the school we're in physically, and the kind of studio our students are involved in, both in New York City and in Canada here. So every year we have travel studios, and then this is the space that students get to hang out around socializing, and then it also turns into an exhibition space for displaying academic work and the student magazine or journal, and this our career fair. So the kind of student life and the curriculum. Next slide, please. So I think one of the things that we are very unique and distinct is the innovative curriculum. And this is just an example of the kind of new courses we created in the last 3 to 4 years. And then you can see we really try to stay on top of the trends around in the profession, not only in planning profession, but also in neighboring professions that many of our students will likely go on to work in. And then you can also see to the right-hand side, the extracurriculum activities and the intellectual kinds of opportunities that are available. And next slide, please. So we are accredited just as most other programs. And so it's very flexible. Less than half is required, and then more than half is selective. And so we have distinctive clusters of strength: built environment, climate adaptation, community and economic development, international planning and development, and urban analytics. As Emily was alluded to, we are very strong in analytics and in international, but we have a long history of focusing on social justice and the built environment because we are in the architecture school. So you can see the courses reflect this. And then to prepare our students for more urgent and timely crisis, and the climate adaptation has really formed a significant cluster in the curriculum. And then so you can take electives everywhere else, right, on campus. Next click, please. And so these are the places most of our students have taken classes from, as well as we have dual degrees with all of those. And then we also have a part-time option, which I outlined here. But the last thing I would want to say is that we are very full on in terms of preparing students for a professional career. This is a professional degree. Hence, we not only connect with practice through a large group of very seasoned practitioners in the classroom as adjunct faculty, we also provide a full range of career services. So you can see this and be happy to answer questions down the road. Last slide, please. So these are the career pathways that we have surveyed our recent alum in the last 5 to 7 years. So you can see they not only work in traditional planning roles, they also work in emergent fields or neighboring fields that have really important planning functions. And that's how we design our curriculum and how we want to prepare our students for. So thank you very much. We already had our open house, but in the chat box, I'm going to share a link of the page where you can find all the information of the recordings of our open house. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the four panelists. I'd like to follow up and attempt to have a little bit of a conversation to tease some of your strengths further. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you two questions. The first question, I think I'm going to address on the same order of presentation, if that's fine. So Nicholas, how does your work's mission and location influence the type of work you do with communities?
All right. Oh, thank you. That's a great question. I'll talk about two studios we have ongoing right now that give you a sense of kind of some of the projects we have going. One of them is with Department of Transportation. Ryan Russo is working on, he's a former assistant commissioner at DOT. He's teaching it, and they're really thinking about how to get cars out of New York City. And so it is really kind of hands-on, trying to come up with new strategies and working closely with the city agency. A different studio we have going on now is with Community Service Society, which is thinking about and working on ideas for a social housing authority. And a lot of our students are very advocacy oriented, and they're really concerned, especially with all the coursework they have on housing in our program, that there isn't the production that there could be in the city. So they're thinking about how to come up with a social housing authority. And this relates directly to a lot of the pressure coming from neighborhoods and state representatives and so forth to shape a new legislation that can change neighborhoods for the better.
Thank you. That was very succinct. Appreciate it. Sophie, may I ask you the same question, if you don't mind? How does your school's mission and location influence the type of work you do with communities?
Yeah, it's really so essentially our practice and how we think about it. I myself have moved here from University of Cape Town, and there's a whole string of colleagues like myself who work in the Global South in partnership with community organizations. So we have, for instance, next semester, this is in between the US and the Global South, Global North. We have some work in Puerto Rico, really working with community organizations around public space. We have work in New York City, which is both through Linda, for instance, working around questions of climate justice with community organizations who are really at the brunt of that experience out in boroughs in New York, but also working with planning projects and programs and state-driven projects on wind energy and all sorts of really critical policy issues. We do all sorts of work in the upstate area. We have a colleague who works with Seneca Nation of Indians, working on indigenous questions and land questions, but all sorts of work with small towns like Ithaca around water and flooding and adaptation and affordable housing. And it's really having that mix of scales and contexts and a cohort of students who are both from the US and from various places around the world, and thinking about how that helps us land these questions of practice. Thanks. I think you're muted, Julio.
All right. Sorry about that. Mishi, may I ask you to please answer? Yeah.
Yeah, so the Blaustein School is really committed to public service, social justice, and alleviating inequality. And I think our faculty, all of us, also recognize that urban planning ultimately is a collective problem-solving process, right? We do planning with the communities that are affected by our actions and decisions, right? So just to give you one example, we have been having a community land trust studio in the Bronx and Queens for several years by now already. We are working with community to really try to put this idea, decommodify housing, into practice. So housing should stay decommodified so they are affordable, right? So this is how we learn from communities. For example, right now we are running a studio, try to figure out how do we place and where do we place community harm reduction facilities in communities in Newark, in Camden, as well as in New Brunswick, where we are located. And we want to do it in a way that is equitable so that people have access to those harm reduction facilities. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Wei Ping, may I ask you to answer the same question as well? Would you like me to repeat it or?
No, thank you. I would echo all the sentiments. I think you're coming to the right field, planning nearly all of the programs. This is very central and core. And I would just like to say that Columbia, being in private university, there are some innate contradictions. And we actually, where we are situated in Harlem, our university has had a very tortured relationship with its community around the campus. And so it's not an easy question. It really is not. And so what we try to help and prepare our students to do is to understand the complexity, essentially learn contextually and learn continuously. And then to also think about the positioning of us as planners and who are we when we work with communities? How can we not impose ourselves onto the community? How do we, because we do studios also in other countries, and how we really should start by asking questions, really not starting to say, we know it all. We really don't. And so our international focus in that sense really is helping students understand, to ask the kind of questions that will help us understand the communities, and perhaps we can help. I think sometimes it's also expectations. Planning and the profession itself is implicated in many, shall we say, violent state actions. We also have to be keenly aware of that. So with that, I just say it's really, I would like to echo everyone and just add this a little bit of a nuance to how we negotiate the kind of learning activities centered around the communities.
Thank you so much. I feel like a second question that I had has very much been answered in all your presentations, which was the employment trajectory of all of your students. They were very wonderful slides on those trajectories. Linda, I don't know how we're doing time-wise, but maybe we could.
Do you want to cede your time, Julio?
I don't think there's any time to cede, so why don't we proceed to the next panel, which actually Nick is going to moderate.
Okay.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. So I'll wait for. Okay, well, first up will be New York University, the Wagner Graduate School of Public Service. So thank you all for coming and participating in the panel this evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Natasha Iskander. I am Professor of Urban Planning and Public Service at Wagner University's Masters of Urban Planning, Wagner School of Public Service, Masters of Urban Planning at New York University's It's quite a mouthful, and all of those layers enrich what we do. Next slide, please. So as an enterprise, Wagner's Graduate School of Public Service and the Masters of Urban Planning within it strive to prepare public service leaders to translate ideas into actions that have effective and lasting impacts on the public good. Our ambition is to provide our students with critical skills access to all that New York has to offer, and a deep understanding of context surrounding public service challenges, which they can use to improve cities and communities across the globe. I want to just spend a minute to tell you a little bit about what makes Wagner unique, and then I'll go over the program itself. But I want to say that the strongest feature that makes Wagner unique, and perhaps it's not unique to Wagner, but it's certainly where I experience it and where the faculty here experience it most directly, is that all of our students have credible ambitions to change the world, and they are dedicated to doing so. It's a really inspiring place to come, inspiring place to teach, an inspiring place to do research, and an inspiring place to imagine new futures. What makes Wagner unique is the NYC location. Students have access to valuable internships, leading practitioners, and the rich diversity of the city's communities. The MUP program is rooted in public service and sits in a school larger school of public service, which means that students have the opportunity to interact with a broad set of faculty and students engaged in urban planning and urban policy. But also engaged in policy areas that may seem adjacent to urban planning, but have profound implications for how urban policy is done. And it informs how students approach practice. We have a really remarkable trajectory of record of career success. 98% of our graduates are employed within 10 months of graduation. They are employed all over the world in a variety of sectors. And we have a commitment to diversity, inclusion, diversity, belonging, equity, and access in public service. And we strive to incorporate these ideas in our community, our curriculum. We have students from 30 countries around the world, all of whom bring professional experience from every sector of public service. Next slide, please. We have 2 specializations and multiple focus areas beneath those specializations. Our city and community planning specialization focuses on innovation in city visions and planning approaches, their rootedness in urban histories and built environments, and their deep connection to community-led dynamics and government processes. Our international development planning.
3 minutes.
Already? Okay, I'm almost
Yeah.
done. I'm almost done. Allows us to look at these questions in an international context. Our curriculum starts with core classes that provide foundational coursework. We move then to specialized courses that provide you with the relevant skills and analytic frames, electives, and then our capstone, which is a year-long project in collaboration with an organization, a real-world project. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next slide, which you can see the capstone.
It's a great slide. Okay, terrific. It will be held. And yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Now we have the presentation from Pratt Institute, the Graduate Center for Planning and the Environment.
Thanks so much, Nick, and thanks so much to all of our colleagues who organized this event. My name is Juan Camilo Osorio. I'm an associate professor at Pratt Institute's Graduate Center for Planning and the Environment. And I'm grateful for the chance to discuss our master's program in urban and community planning with you. I serve as a member of the New York City Planning Commission, where I have the privilege to see the work of planners like Alex, who you heard earlier, and his team at the Department of City Planning, and really see the urgency to engage a new generation of ethically and politically activated planners like them to think creatively through the large challenges ahead. Our field right now is summoned by several compounding crises, where struggling communities really rely on new ideas to address poverty, environmental and climate injustice, the lack of affordable housing, extreme violence, even democracy is at stake right now. So we at Pratt believe that urban planning is about mutual transformation. We learn from our students as much, if not more, than what they learn from us. But what makes us unique is that we are accountable to the communities that we partner with. Next slide, please. We are located in the heart of Brooklyn in New York City, where we seek to gain perspectives and skills to plan and implement equity building strategies and engage in mutual learning experiences based on participatory practice as the best way to advocate for just and equitable communities. Next slide, please. You'll develop skills to plan, design, and implement transformational solutions using creativity, innovation, and advocacy in partnership with grassroots groups across New York City. They are the ones who teach us really what is actually happening on the ground in low income and communities of color. We learn there how to challenge our assumptions, how to reshuffle ideas, how to co-create new projects in terms of what could be actually possible. This could be about policies for affordable housing, equitable transit, or sustainable land use. They could be about social justice through asset-based community development or environmental and climate justice goals. In addition to providing the technical skills, our program helps find your voice in the complex debates as you structure principles and values that guide the rest of your career. Next slide, please. Many of our students work full-time and take evening courses. Pratt welcomes students from all backgrounds, honoring prior work experience and graduate level courses, providing scholarships, offering paid fellowships, internships, and assistantship opportunities to offset tuition. This includes other Pratt groups like the Pratt Center for Community Development, the Spatial Analysis and Visualization Initiative, and other partners like the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance or the Taconic Foundation. Next slide, please. And of course, full-time and part-time faculty members who are practitioners deeply engaged in building equity through their own work in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. You'll learn from professionals working in diverse capacities, from directors of nonprofits to city agency and government leaders, to planners working in private firms, to community planners and organizers, to landscape architects, to policy analysts. In
3 minutes.
In summary, we are a PAB accredited program where you can put your passion for social justice to work. You'll find on screen the information about our next info session. Thanks so much and stay in touch.
Thank you so much. Up next is the Parsons program.
Hi, hello, my name is Gabriela Rendon. I'm an associate professor of urban planning and community development. I was the director of the program for like 4 years, some years ago. And we are located in a very strategic location, very close to Union Square, between Union Square and Washington Square. We are easily connected to all the boroughs and also New Jersey. Our program is based in the School of Design Strategies, one of the 5 schools of Parsons School of Design at the New School. And this school is focused on leadership, management, and strategic design. Next, please. Our 2-year 60-credit program reframes the study of urbanization and cities through design-led, justice-centered approaches to urban transformation. It seeks to shape emerging social-oriented urban practices that advance environmental and spatial justice. The program combines critical theory with practice. It is really hands-on. It is a studio-based with a focus on New York City, particularly neighborhoods that have experienced redlining, disinvestment, pollution, discrimination, and neglect, and that now are they have been kind of considered nowadays as the new frontiers for profit making or development. So we were very close with these communities, mostly BIPOC communities, working class communities, and so we were very close with them. Can you please go to next? Thank you. We embrace the intersection of all disciplines because we believe the city should be understood, envisioned, shaped, and transformed by connecting different types of knowledge and expertise. We actually find super powerful the combination of academic and popular knowledge. We really value the experiential knowledge passed down from generation to generation in the communities where we work with. We embrace participatory action research, as a methodology. And we promote non-extractive research approaches, including radical cartography, collective mapping, and storytelling, just to mention a few, as part of the planning
3-minute warning
process. And of course, we also have used data technology to advance the efforts of communities. Our planning approach is human-centric and plural, and the program seeks to democratize decision-making and urban leadership, and we focus on the process rather than the outcome. Okay. We like delving into the root of the problem to create systemic change. Can you go to the next one?
Okay, Thank you so much. Can you just
Okay.
finish this up, and because we have Julio's up next.
Okay, yeah, so this is just, we have like 2 tracks of minors and electives. Yeah,
Thank you so much. And I don't mean to, I have been instructed to be the timekeeper, so I don't mean to do this. But all these slides and the video for more details are available, will be available after the event. All right, and last but not least, the City College of New York presentation art. Julio, close it out at 3 minutes.
I'm so stressed about the timing. Our program is a Master's of Urban Planning and Urban Design. It's a mouthful, but it really talks about the nature of our program and its differentiating factor, which is it's concentrated in urban design. Founded in 1969, we're a small community of 490 students. We are in the premier public design school of New York City among architecture, landscape architecture, and urban sustainability programs. And our students participate in courses in all those 3 other programs. We are housing a new facility with dedicated studio spaces, labs, and library. As a public subsidized schools, we're rather affordable, as you can see from the infographics that are presented to you here. Our program is based on social and environmental justice. We have courses in history, data technology, technology theory, socially situated practices, and design. My presentation is mostly going to be focused on the design aspect of our course. Our program is centered on the premise that only a combination of leadership, advocacy, technical, and design skills will lead to meaningful change in the way we think, plan, and construct our built environments. You see some of the early core work here with some urban technologies and coding being implemented. Next, please. Faculty and students foster new conversations in response to our planetary crisis and provide transformative alternatives that radically imagine our cities as equitable, diverse, resourceful, and economically nimble. Here you see some work that is mixing community building in the school, learning from the global south, and new technologies that are being implemented. Next, please. Our community research program examines specific critical agendas and extrapolates alternatives. We focus on flashpoint crisis as economic and social and spatial inequalities, migrancy, density, and ecology. Here you see some upper level studios that work in consultancy with the Bond Center for Urban Futures and NYCHA, and you see some of the planning work and some of the design work being overlapped. And lastly, our program sees New York City both as immersive, complex environment to study planning and urban design. And it's also a dense site for professional opportunities through our agencies, organizations, philanthropy, and design offices. You see here some of the work of our capstone students, some of the early dramatic work. This is part of a town and ground working group on urban resource recovery.
All right.
That's it.
Wow. Okay. We did it. So thank you so much. And we have time. I would like to pose the questions to the group in the order which you appeared, to talk a little bit, the same questions that Julio posed earlier. How does your school's mission and location influence the type of work you do with communities? So we'll start with NYU.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that question. One of the things about NYC is that it allows us to bring into conversation multiple streams of practice from locally, nationally, and around the world. We do it through internships, capstones, faculty and student initiatives in neighborhoods throughout NYC, but also in neighborhoods in countries around the globe and around the country. Just some examples of the initiatives that we have launched as a means to create these interdisciplinary, interspatial, intercity conversations our initiatives on gender and urban planning in the Northern Triangle, and bringing that into dialogue with conversations about gender and urban planning in the Bronx, to programs on affordable housing in Uganda, to bringing those insights to housing trusts in Mississippi, from participatory budgeting in Indonesia, to bringing those insights into conversation with participatory budgeting in NYC. Again, another example is climate change planning in Mombasa, Belize, and then bringing those insights to Red Hook, bringing the insights from Red Hook back to Belize and Mombasa. So we really try to bring the multiple strands of practice that converge on NYC into direct and interactive conversation through our teaching, our research, but most importantly, through our capstones, which are real world projects.
Great, thank you. Can we get Pratt on this question?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. When I said at the beginning that our work is really accountable to the communities that we serve, I really meant that. The history of Pratt is heavily rooted in notion of service, where planners like Ron Schiffman decades ago created the Community Development Corporation model in partnership with local grassroots planners. And we've since then tried to elevate that. Our work in the communities is composed of research, but also technical assistance, and really understanding the nature of the questions and the needs that they bring to us, and really respect the invitations that they put forth with the most care possible. We are one of the few schools, I would say, in the nation that offer a studio in the first year, sometimes in the first semester, because as I said earlier, we believe that that is the way in which we learn how to plan. When we work in communities, we learn from them as much as they learn from us, and we really collaborate on that. I want to also say that in addition to the work that we do with grassroots planners across the city, I am the fourth of a series of faculty members who have served in the City Planning Commission. Our chair serves in the Civic Engagement Commission, and we engage and partner and support in solidarity, working in solidarity with the communities that we engage with in the studios at different levels of the work. And so this includes doing research citywide, understanding policy opportunities, and joining them in fighting for their struggles and pushing forth or moving forth with their priorities.
Excellent. Parsons.
Yeah, so we are also, I mean, very centric, and but we work mostly like in the different boroughs. We have also we develop a lot of partnerships, not only like in the studios. Our program starts with studios since the very beginning. So we have 4 studios, and the first year of the program is focused on New York. You know, like everyone, you know, like we have like a student that are coming from different places, so it's like learning about New York. And I'm working very close, like in partnership with different communities and organizations or public agencies. But in the second year, we have like the thesis year. So it's like a year-long project where we really encourage for participatory action research, no, because there is like the time to engage deeply, no, with different organizations or communities. And yeah, so it's a very enriching experience, but also like some students can decide not to focus on their hometowns, you know, like that if they live like in another part of the United States, or if they live in an international setting, so they can work on their project in their country. So we have like the support, and there is like a very large network of faculty, not only like in the program, but in the whole school, that can be mentors, and depending the expertise and the particularity of the project that they are selecting. No, we also are like very connected with the social and housing movements in the city, and so yeah, it's just like a pleasure to be in New York and to have those opportunities and work with the students. Yeah.
All right, Julio, do you want to close out this question?
Sure, thank you so much. In terms of our community work, I mean, we are embedded within City College, and this College of City, the mission of City College is really one of empowerment, upward mobility, and social justice. within our campus, there are two particular significant centers that we work with to understand more closely the communities that we might help. One is the Colin Powell School for Government, which is located within our campus, and it has a lot of different strains of leadership and activism within that school. The other one is the Bond Center within our own building. And the Bond Center is very much embedded in East Harlem, and it's looking at and has been working with the community for many, many years. So we find that being able to rely on the Bond Center to best suit what the community needs through a very long process is really what best suits our students, which are really only there for 3 semesters. So we rely on partnerships with organizations like the ANHD or the Bond Center that have worked with communities for many years to embed the work of our students for a little bit of time. The second aspect to the question is that as a design program, we are trans-scalar and very imaginative. So in the current work that we did on resource management with the Town and Gown program for New York City, we were working at an architectural scale, we were working at a neighborhood scale, and we were working at a regional scale. And the ability to work across scales is what provides something that may be valuable to the communities and to our students.
Thank you all. Linda, do we have time for one more, or shall we call this?
Sure. And the last question is about employment.
Yes.
Right. I think that students would like to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back through the group, and if we can be succinct, because we're supposed to end at 5:30. But can you talk a little bit about the employment trajectory for your graduates?
Sure.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Yeah, 98% of our graduates are employed within 10 months. About half end up working for NGOs and nonprofits. So nonprofits that are local, small community-based, but also large international and multilateral NGOs and initiatives. That includes philanthropic organizations as well, local, national, and international. A quarter of our students end up working for the private sector, for planning and design firms, consulting firms, and research organizations, organizations that create policy recommendations, and a quarter end up working for government, local government, state government, and federal government in the US and around the world. And one of the really valuable things about having students in all of these sectors is that the cross-learning that happens at Wagner continues into their professional lives. Students move from graduates move from sector to sector throughout their professional lives and remain in touch with one another through our alumni network and our initiatives to cultivate that, to continue learning throughout their professional experience.
Thank you so much. We would go to Pratt.
Thank you. Our alumni work in very different capacities. As I mentioned earlier, this includes elected officials, directors of nonprofits, city agency and other government leaders, people working in private firms, community planners and organizers, landscape architects, and other policy types of policy analysis. One thing that I would like to add is that a lot of them come back. We see ourselves as a really tight and knit community of colleagues that continue to cooperate and collaborate throughout and after graduation.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them serve as partners to our studios. We see the anchoring or the process to build the trust in the communities as a long-lasting relationship with them. And our alumni are a very important part of that, who oftentimes come back to the department and teach and continue to help us strengthen those relationships.
Thank you so much. Parson.
Hi. Yeah, so very similar. Our alumni usually find jobs between 6 and 9 months, and I don't have like the percentages, but I'm sure like that the most common paths are nonprofit corporations and community organizations, national and international foundations or organizations, also like public agencies, public institutes, majors offices and the like. And of course, also like urban architectural consulting firms and corporations. Something like very inspiring is that we have also found the formation of collectives. So I mean, we have like a very beautiful network that we're kind of like a family, and some of our alumni have formed like collectives and formed like very interesting like small nonprofit organizations or small institutes that are kind of like following kind of like our tradition of kind of like doing like or shaping like these emerging practices. So it has been really nice to see that. Yeah.
Super. Okay, Julio, finish it out there.
We're a very small cohort. So we really follow our alumni very closely. We have alumni in academia. The current dean of the Yale School of Architecture is one of our alumni. We have alumni non-for-profit foundations. The current director of the Graham Foundation is one of our alumni. We have alumni in design offices. One of our recent alumni who's teaching at the school has leading projects for BIG and for mass design. We have a lot of alumni also in planning offices. We have alumni in the Middle East, responsible for national resource and cultural affairs. So it's very hard to pin down where our alumni will go. We're just incredibly happy that it's so diverse.
Thank you to all of you so much. They were very inspiring presentations, and I'll turn it back over to Linda now. Well, we were about 5 minutes over, Linda, but oh well. It was ambitious.
I am grateful that you all worked hard to keep us on time. Thank you all so much for a really wonderful set of conversations. Before we all go, we have shared this link in the chat. It is a survey on Qualtrics to indicate how much this session has influenced your thinking on planning and applications, living and working and going to school in New York, as well as saying which schools you are still interested or you are now interested in hearing more from. And based on that information, you will be hearing a more tailored set of responses from all of these schools with additional information. If you are interested in more open houses, I also direct you to this link on our web event page, where you can see the list of all the upcoming open houses for all of these different schools. The recording and the slides will be made available online. So if you were not able to attend the full session, you will be able to find this online shortly. And especially if you provide information on this link, you'll certainly get pinged about it when all this information is up on the board. So thank you all so much. I will just leave this open a little bit longer so that you all have a chance to click on the link, but everyone else is welcome to depart. We look forward to seeing your applications and wish you many fruitful journeys ahead. Thank you all so much.